Welcome, focused learners, to this rapid-fire explainer. Today, we're tracing the multicultural origins of what is honestly a massive shift in the U.S. criminal legal system. We're going to unpack the 5 historical strands that took restorative justice from these isolated local practices and turned it into a nationwide phenomenon. Now, to really grasp the scale of this shift, consider the number 48. You see, between 1972 and 2009, the U.S. literally led the world in a massive incarceration boom. Yet today, 48 out of 50 states have passed laws using relational restorative alternatives. So how exactly did a system that was built entirely on punishment suddenly pivot toward healing? Okay, let's dive right into this. The answer lies in 5 distinct historical threads: Christian religious influence, BIPOC and indigenous wisdom, innovations from New Zealand and Australia, alternative dispute resolution, and a major shift in the criminal legal system itself. First up is the Christian religious strand. And what's fascinating here is how it crossed the entire political spectrum. You had Mennonite Howard Zehr, who basically reframed crime entirely. He argued it's not just about breaking a law, it's about causing harm to real people. And on the other side, you had Chuck Colson. After his Watergate incarceration, he founded Prison Fellowship and educated Christian conservatives, which gained absolutely crucial right-wing support for non-punitive justice. To put a concrete example to this religious movement, let's look at VORP, the Victim Offender Reconciliation Program. Launched way back in 1978 in Elkhart, Indiana, it was one of the earliest initiatives of its kind in the U.S. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Instead of top-down punishment handed out by a judge, victims and offenders actually met face-to-face. The goal? To achieve true reconciliation and figure out direct amends together. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is our second and arguably deepest historical strand, BIPOC and indigenous innovations. For indigenous cultures, restorative justice isn't some new program, it's a communal way of life. For instance, in 1982, the Navajo Nation established peacemaker courts focused heavily on restoring relational harmony. And by 1991, thanks to Judge Barry Stewart, formal sentencing circles utilizing community elders were deeply integrated right into the Yukon court system. Jumping to our third strand, we have to look globally at New Zealand and Australian innovation. In the 1980s, New Zealand created family group conferencing to respect indigenous Maori values. Think about how traditional juvenile courts work. They usually isolate offenders to dictate a punishment, right? Well, this Wagga Wagga conferencing model is totally different. It brings the youth, the victims, and the families all together into a circle to collectively repair the harm. Ted Wachtel and Lauren Abramson actually brought this exact model over to the U.S. with great success. And this brilliantly illustrates our fourth strand, alternative dispute resolution, or ADR. Now, ADR really gained traction after a wild 1974 case in Ontario, where 2 young men actually negotiated direct restitution with 22 different property owners they had vandalized. That case sparked what we call humanistic mediation. It's a simple 3-step process: meet face-to-face, tell the story, and share the impact, and reach mutual restitution. Let's move to the 5th strand and see how this builds into the actual legal system. Out of sheer necessity, as mass incarceration became totally unsustainable, the criminal legal system started absorbing these practices, and the impact hit every single level. Lawmakers passed dozens of state statutes, police began pre-charge diversions to build trust, courts evolved into specialty courts, like in Red Hook, and corrections departments started using reparative probation and reentry circles. So, restorative justice in America didn't just magically appear out of nowhere. It's like a giant woven tapestry of Christian peace-building, indigenous wisdom, global innovation, grassroots mediation, and downright systemic necessity. With 48 states already passing laws to get on board, we really have to ask ourselves, will restorative justice and community healing soon become the option of first choice? Could traditional punitive courts eventually become the absolute last resort? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer today.